Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Dragyn's Den. Pull up a seat and take a drink of your choice. We'll be here for a while. In today's episode, I'm riding solo. It's been a few weeks since I've done a podcast episode on my own. So, hello, it is I, Dragyn. And we're going to continue on the theme for a little while of just different forms of media or entertainment that have been important to my life, have had an influence on me, that kind of thing for quite a while. So for this week's episode, we are diving into TV shows and influences. Now these are going to be all the shows that are more of like your typical kids dramas, crime shows, that kind of thing. I'm keeping anime out of it. If you would like to listen to those influences, because most of my childhood was anime, please go back a few weeks and listen to the anime episodes. That will give you a pretty good insight into what kind of a kid I was. Pretty much, yeah. Goodness, I was a huge nerd, and I'm proud of it, and I still am. Yep. So we're going to dive into those kinds of TV shows today. So I'm going to start with kind of childhood-ish, more maybe preteen, adolescent kind of era, move on from there, and most of these shows I don't quite remember when I started watching them, but I do remember loving them for whatever reason. So we'll get into those reasons in a little bit. Now let's begin with Family Channel era. I was a Family Channel kid. Not so much a Nickelodeon or Cartoon Network or Teletoon or any of those networks. Not really. Not until I got into high school, mainly, basically. And I bring up those shows a little bit in the other episodes, so I won't go into that. But I was a Family Channel kid, and the shows that I remember the most are interesting. Pretty much. Let's get into it. First one, Lizzie McGuire. Now, I must admit, I was a huge Hilary Duff fangirl, basically, from goodness, I think age 8 and onwards, and still, because she's a fantastic human being. And I loved the show so much. I don't know why. Really. I think it's cool that she had a fun, outgoing, out there kind of best friend, and then she had a guy best friend. And I figured that was really cool because I had a lot of guy friends growing up basically in that kind of age range. And I always thought it was weird. And most people did pick on me for having just guy friends. But if you knew what I was into, like Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, all those kinds of things, then yeah, having guy best friends during that time period made sense. So I don't know, seeing a character like that was kind of cool, and she was also pretty average, yet remarkable, because she wasn't the super smart kid or in her class. She wasn't the outstanding jock or popular girl either. She tried to fit in quite a bit, and I think a lot of us could relate to that during that age period, and even now to an extent. So I felt like that too. Definitely during that time period. I didn't feel remarkable. I had to work extremely hard to get really good grades, and yeah, there's a lot about Lizzie, the character herself, that was really cool. Plus, she had that little cartoon self that she talked to or had talked to herself. And I thought that was kind of cool. Oh, here's the other persona that I have or could be, but I'm not right now. And I thought that was kind of a cool thing. So Lizzie McGuire was such a fun show. And the family dynamic between her and her little brother and her mom and dad, it all felt really relatable for quite a long period of time in my life. I absolutely loved Lizzie McGuire. And that launched Hilary Duff's career, and I basically loved every moment of that. There you go. The next show for Disney Channel era was Smart Guy. A lot of people don't remember this show, and I don't know why. I loved it so much because there's this little kid, and he was exceptionally smart in the family, and he was quite younger than his older brother. His older brother was in high school, and yet he managed to skip a lot of grades to be in high school with his older brother. I don't really know why I liked that show so much, to be honest, but I think it was just really cool to see just this like little kid be exceptional, and how he did fit in and not fit in, you know? It was sort of that awkward kind of teenage, not so teenage years, I guess, for him, because he was not quite a teenager. And they only had their dad raising them. So again, that was kind of cool. Especially because, like, I am also a child of divorce and things. So, like, having another show that kind of showed, like, hey, they're going to be okay without, like, another parent was kind of a neat thing for me. So I really liked that show. And just, he was so smart. And he always talked about a lot of topics that I was interested in, like astrology and, like, all these, like, kind of nerdier subjects that I was really into, especially at younger, because I loved history, I loved science. To a point, high school science basically ruined science for me, which is really sad because it's still a very cool thing to learn about. But yeah, I was into like astrology, space, science, weather, all these things, and this little kid knew it all. It was kind of a neat thing, and I really enjoyed it, especially when he would go on his little tangents. And yeah, it was just him trying to find a balance of like fitting into high school while having kids his age and still being a child and having a childhood. So it was really neat. I think I probably attached to that show quite a bit because I didn't really have a childhood much. So yeah, I just kind of latched onto that. And I'm like, hey, he can have a childhood. I can have a childhood. Liking all of these Disney Channel shows and like all these card games and video games and such. Cool. I can have that and be a hard worker and having a job at 12 and having to somehow take care of my life and deal with all the emotions of things going on at that time. So really, really like Smart Guy. It was definitely a good show. I wonder if Disney Plus has it. I would like to go back and rewatch it. Anyhoozle. Smart Guy, very good show. Then it came to Kim Possible. A lot of us remember Kim Possible. I've seen so many cool Kim Possible cosplays lately, and it's just so cool because every time I see anything related to Kim Possible, I just get really happy. I thought Kim was really cool. She's definitely another character that's kind of caught between like having responsibilities and yet being a teenager. I know her responsibilities is like being this super awesome like spy superhero, catching the bad guys, all that kind of thing, which a lot of us kids really liked watching, so I was definitely in that kind of category. But she also had to be a teenager and had to like enjoy being in high school somehow and surviving high school and having a dorky best friend, Ron, and the little naked mole rat. Again, I like that show because again, it showed that like girls can be friends with guys, and it was totally cool. Plus, they went to a taco restaurant all the time. Like, that's my dream right there, is to have a best friend that takes me out for tacos whenever I want tacos. So there you go. Ron is my ideal best friend. And many rights. I said it out loud. If you guys want to be my Ron Stoppable, by all means, leave a comment. No, I'm kidding. I'm not looking for friends through my podcast. That's weird. But I like Kim Possible. I love singing the theme song so much, and when cell phones became really big, I remember everyone having like the call me, reach me, da, 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 da. Anyway, like they always had the theme song, or like the even little like da, 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 what's the sitch kind of like ringtone. Perfect. Absolutely great. I loved that whole thing. And a nerdy little like phone friend was great. I have a nerdy little phone friend. I'm not calling out spam as my nerdy little online friend, but he's my nerdy little online friend. There you go. So yeah, I loved Kim Possible. There you go. Oh, and my sister and I still, to this day, when we get milkshakes on fries, we dip our fries into milkshake. Yes, because we got that from that show, and we're like, that's a weird idea, but kind of cool. Let's try it. And then we loved it. So if you see us at Wendy's and you see two sisters taking fries and putting them in their Frosties, thank you, Kim Possible, for that little influence on my life that I still enjoy to this day. Yep. Now next comes into like a lot of like more animated cartoons, I guess, I suppose. And so Proud Family was one of them. Another kind of really cool family show that was like, oh look, a tight nuclear, neat little family system, but they all had their problems and they all had to deal with things, getting into high school, growing up, teenagers. You kind of understood when I was watching these things because my life was like that too. But from that show specifically, there's this song where it was about dysfunctional families, and I loved it so much. I can't remember how it goes right now, but I just remember this episode playing out with like a family member coming to visit them. And then like boom, cut to the end of the episode and there's this music video about like dysfunctional families. And I was like, that's my life. That whole music video is great and my life. And absolutely my family is absolutely dysfunctional. So that fits in, and I can't believe I still remember that to this day. Wow. Some things just stick with you, you know? That's why this is TV shows and influences episode, because obviously the weird things I remember about some shows have an influence. Really love the Proud Family, though. Absolutely enjoyed it. Then it came Phineas and Ferb. Now, I'll admit, I watched this and got into it a little late in my life, sort of near high schoolish, and so that was always a weird thing to admit to any friends near that age range. Like, yeah, I watch Phineas and Ferb, and they're like, really? I'm like, don't judge me, okay? It's cool. I like these kids. Plus the theme song, amazing. There's 102 days of summer vacation. School comes along just to end it. Yeah, I can sing you that theme song by heart. Yeah, and plus 102 days of summer vacation. Man, what is that like? That would have been crazy. So, yeah, I really love that show. Two quirky little kids, older sister being a meanie, and them dealing with the big bad Doofenshmirtz, but he wasn't really even a big baddie. He's a sweetie. We all know this. We all love Doofenshmirtz. Yeah, good show. I absolutely love it. And anytime I see like a picture online where there's someone with a pointy nose and kind of crazy messy hair, I'm like, Doofenshmirtz, but it would be something totally unrelated to Doofenshmirtz. Oh well. And how am I forgetting Perry the Platypus? The platypus living a double life, being an agent trying to stop Doofenshmirtz, and also being just a family pet for the boys. Gotta love Platypus. Absolutely. I liked Phineas and Ferb a little too much. Plus, it's all about these crazy experiments that they did that ended up helping to save the day. I like nerdy kids in TV shows, I guess. That is me. You're welcome. Moving on now to more shows kind of like Smart Guy and Liz McGuire. So these were more of like the kid dramas, I suppose. And that would be Sweet Life of Zack and Cody and Sweet Life on Deck. Loved those shows hardcore. The twins were hilarious. Yeah, gosh, and Living in the Hotel and London Tipton. That actress is phenomenal, by the way. I got to see her a little bit in Station 19, a show that I will get to later as a recent thing I love, but it's so cool to see her again after so many years. She was such a great actress, being London Tipton and having to be that heir to a hotel chain. Played that role very well. And then Ashley Tisdale was in that show as being like one of the, I guess like the candy counter attendant, whatever, person. So she was in that show. The boys were always trying to flirt with her. Yeah, it's definitely a show that has stuck to my brain. And I still, to this day, when I look at oh my god, why can't I think of what this is called in a car? The shift thingy, to put yourself out of drive, park, that thingy. Oh my god, I'm embarrassing myself. Hardcore right now, but I still refer to that thing as the Prindle, thanks to London, when she was taking driving lessons from taking driving lessons in that one episode. So yeah, the Prindle, guys. Make sure you have the Prindle in the right letter so you know how to drive and not to drive? That is the big question. Yep. So there's that. I love those two shows. And when they moved to Sweet Life on Deck, I was crazy. There were so many crossover episodes from other Disney Channel shows and stars that it just felt like the story could go on forever, really. And definitely enjoyed it. Absolutely. Very, very good show. The janitor was my favorite character. I'm not going to lie right now. I can't remember his name in the show, but he's currently in a new show that my little brother loves. Ricky, Dicky, Nikki, and I don't remember the girl's name. I'm sorry. I don't watch kids shows nowadays. But my little brother loved that show, and he's the father in that show. So seeing him again after all these years was really cool. Yeah, I love that show. Definitely. I thought it would always be fun to like run around in a hotel and be crazy and do all these crazy things that the kids did. And I don't think I've ever done any of those things that I wish I had. I'm very respectful when it comes to entering a new place that's not mine. And just treating it like, okay, this is a vacation. I'm only here for a few days. Let's make sure everything looks good. And I leave it as I found it. I wish I would have let loose a little more. Now that I think about it. I really should have had a childhood. Anyway, so there's Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. And then, goodness, to end this kind of Disney Channel era, one show that I really loved and launched Selena Gomez on the scene. Wizards of Waverly Place. I love that show so much. The older brother. I've never related to such a dork in my life. Just being a nerd, being on top of everything, wanting to be the best wizard he could be. Yeah, I wanted to be that. Be like the best nerd and person that I could be, while also trying to figure out dating. And maybe I'm a little still like him to this day, trying to figure out dating. Anyway, when I liked Selena Gomez's character, I loved Alex. She was really fun, quirky. Her fashion sense was on point as well in that show back in the day. I really loved it. And then her little brother too was quite fun little guy character to enjoy, watching them all grow up and learn their powers and control the magic. And that was definitely a genre of things I enjoyed when it comes to TV shows, books, movies. You'll hear it all, I promise. But magic and doing things and always making mistakes and having to fix it while hiding it from the real world. And oh goodness, just such nostalgia. I'm feeling very nostalgic right now, and it has a permanent smile on my face while talking about some of these. So I really love this Disney Channel era of my life, really. Now I'm pretty sure I'm forgetting a few shows, but I am. Phil of the Future. I love that show. Oh my gosh. Something about this family that transports to the future and having to figure out how people live in this day and age. Oh, it was so fun. And I love the actor that played Phil. And then Allie was in there from Allie and AJ. And that's how they got into their music career. Oh my gosh, I love that show. It was so quirky. And then they had to travel back in time, try to figure out where they're from and where they're going. And oh my god, it's so fun. And then they bring back a caveman and they live with them. Oh my goodness, that show is great. Wow, so many nostalgic moments there. But yes, I'm sure I'm missing a few more shows. I was going to bring up Radio Free Roscoe, but that show was very short-lived on Disney, and I doubt anyone in Disney could figure out where that show went. Because I really liked it, and I definitely think Cordon Bleu was on that show, and then it launched him into High School Musical and Jump In, and why am I talking about those movies? That's for a later episode, but Radio Free Roscoe was really fun. Just something about high school kids from all different cliques coming together to run a radio show was really, really cool. I love Radio Free Roscoe, but I've had no one else out there knows what that show is, so I'm very sad about that. But I loved Radio Free Roscoe. A very good show. That is pretty much it for the Disney Channel era. Now, the rest of these shows are kind of a weird mix. I think it's starting when I think it's still kind of like just becoming a teenager, like 13, 14 years old, like kind of around that age where I started to kind of get away from Disney Channel and some of these wholesome feel-good shows and move to more of the real teenage dramas. And that's kind of this genre again. And I really don't remember why I started watching these. I just kind of clicked on it and was like, these kids all have weird relationships with each other and really interesting problems that I will never have because I'm not a popular kid or I'm not that social. So weird. And let's start watching this. And that kind of led into my very first show of this genre, Dawson's Creek. I don't have words for Dawson's Creek. It's a special place in my heart. I think it's because it introduced me to this kind of era and genre of shows where it was just different, and it reminded me a lot of sort of kind of like a little bit of like Liz McGuire, Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, and Wizards of Waverly Place, but in a much more like grown-up sense, I suppose, where there's less childhood influence and more of these guys actually growing up and trying to experience what a teenager's like, and all these different characters from different backgrounds, again, just meeting and dating and breaking up and dating and all that kind of crazy drama, and then dealing with their families as they grow older, telling their parents that we don't need this much influence from you anymore, all that kind of like rebellion. So cool. I really enjoyed watching the drama of it all because I didn't really have that in my life. I mean, I had my drama. I had my fair share of drama, don't get me wrong. My sister and I were not really that close during this time, and we kind of started our falling apart kind of stage. And so there's that bit of family drama that I had, but friend drama wasn't there. I just didn't experience a lot of the friend drama really until high school and later in life. But yeah, Dawson's Creek was really cool. I was like, whoa, these people have such complicated lives. And maybe it was the Schadenfreude side of me where you watch a lot of disaster shows so you can feel better about your own life. I think the rest of these TV shows on this list kind of follow that idea of Schadenfreude, and where you just watch disasters so you can feel better about your own life. There you go. End of the episode. No, I'm kidding. I'll go into more details about all these shows. But Dawson's Creek was really interesting. I liked the theme. And I don't know, it was kind of cool to watch. Then it comes to the remake of 90210. What a crazy show. And made me want to go to Hollywood and LA so badly. I remember that. I think that show took place there, 90210, Beverly Hills, rich girls and popular girls going to school, dealing with average Joes, like your popular guys, and dealing with all the friendships and relationship drama. Again, I don't know why I glued into that so much. Probably because I wish I had some of that in high school, middle school myself, where I could have all these friends and all this drama and like start dating and being into relationships and such. But not my high school experience, not my childhood experience, not even my college experience. That tells you a lot. So that might be an aspect of why I like 90210. But I also remember in 90210 there was a lot of really cool musical guests. Like Coldplay came onto that show at one point, and there's a few others, and I was like, how do they know these bands? They're kids, they're teenagers. But again, families and connections and jobs and blah blah blah, you know how it works. But it was a fun show to watch. All the drama between all the characters was kind of, again, that Schadenfreude feeling, like, haha, I have such a bookworm, nerdy, closed off life compared to these people. Damn. That kind of feels nice and safe compared to what they're going through in the show. So 90210, Guilty pleasure. Absolutely love that show. Definitely. Same with Melrose Place. That's the next one on my list here. Melrose Place. I found out that that was also a remake from an earlier show a while back, and it was interesting because it was kind of high school drama, like teenage drama, but more related in like a actual neighborhood kind of deal, and Melrose Place, so kind of like that. How do I explain it? Sort of like the townhouses, condominium areas in cities. And so all the drama took place like in the schools and outside of the school, but mainly in this neighborhood, and all the relationships between the neighbors and the drama. And it was crazy. I really enjoyed it. And again, a really good theme song. I don't know what's up with me and theme songs for this list, but gotta appreciate a good theme song, man. And that show had it, and it was crazy seeing all these adult dramas and kid dramas all kind of blend together in this teenage drama. So really enjoyed it. Definitely like it. It was on my list because I remember clearly, and some of the characters just doing crazy things like parties and jumping into pools and getting into trouble, breaking the law, all the things that I would literally die if I ever did it in my life. So there you go. I'm too much of a goody two shoes to do these things, but who knows? I'm getting to be 30. Let's see what happens when 30 hits. Just kidding. I don't know. Who knows? Then it becomes a show that I've watched off and on quite a bit in my life, and that is the Canadian teen drama of Degrassi. That's right. Degrassi. Oh my gosh. What can I say about Degrassi? It's based in Canada, right in Toronto, and that's always like kind of a cool thing, especially growing up during this era. Like these TV shows, most of it took place in the States, in America, and it was always American influences, never Canadian anything for me growing up. But then Degrassi became really big and really popular, even across America. I know friends that in America that have seen Degrassi and thought it was weird and lame, but that's fair. But I loved it. And that's where Drake got his start, so you're welcome, world, for bringing up Drake through Degrassi, okay? It's a good show. I think they touch on a lot of really important current themes throughout the seasons, like the idea of like school shootings and bullying, and like students finding out who they are, like in many different ways too, like sexually. I want to be this when I grow up, and all those very like relatable themes when you're in high school, where you gotta quote unquote figure out your life and what direction you want to take, and having that shift constantly in the show. It really is well done, I gotta say. And there's even more themes that in recent seasons, like the Next Generation, prior to Degrassi, they touch on things like the Syrian refugees and like that crisis, and bringing these people over, and the clash of cultures, and finding a space for them in like the school where they could be who they are and follow their religious practices, and that kind of thing was like, whoa, Degrassi's touching on that craziness. And then mental health as well, like suicide and things like that. Those episodes were really hard to watch, not gonna lie. Like, in mental health episodes in general are always like, oh, heartbreaking. They kind of sit on you for a while, and you're just like, oh boy. But when you know a show has done those scenes well, when you have that feeling, and that effect is actually there on you, and it sticks with you for like the whole day. So props to Degrassi for a lot of that. And then tragedies as well was done quite well in Degrassi. In the Next Generation, there's a big bus crash that happens, and a lot of things get really scary and real for a lot of the friends that had people involved in the bus crash and such. So a very interesting show. I still love Degrassi to this day. I'll go back and rewatch the Next Generation at any point. Yes, some of it is ridiculous and over dramatized. I get it, but I don't know. Degrassi still is one of those shows that I like, and now that Netflix has a series of it on its platform, you bet I go back and rewatch that every once in a while. So Degrassi is really good. Now we're moving into a different genre. Now these shows are more like, I guess some of them are still dramas, but some of them are more now leading into like the crime shows and the mystery shows, and watching the science evolve over these shows and periods of time, and wondering if these were actually real technologies or if they're discovering brand new things. Yeah, I was a little naive. I realized it's a show, it's actors, and some of the science behind it was quite real and interesting. Some of it was totally flashy and made up just to make us go, whoa, cool. I get it. But think back to like a teenage kid. You're blown away by all of it. You were usually mind blown by a lot of stuff. So that was me heading into this genre. Now, I could put ER a little bit before Dawson's Creek and the teen dramas there, because that was my first fascination with like doctor shows, was ER. George Clooney was on that show. There's a huge list of actors that have come from ER that I love so much. I don't really remember watching ER a lot for like the cool medical things. It's definitely for the actors and the relationships and the drama, of course, because I'm a kid. That's what I was drawn to. Again, Schadenfreude. Gotta love it. But I don't know. I loved ER a lot. And I think it's because of like the actors coming and going, the different relationships. Again, kind of a Grey's Anatomy feel, but not really Grey's Anatomy. Definitely was just interesting, because like Grey's Anatomy is about like surgery, surgeons, that kind of thing, a little bit of ER and trauma and all the different little aspects of a hospital and the fields related to medicine. But ER was all about the ER and the drama and the action of like people coming into the ER and doctors trying to save their lives. And wasn't it, that show had everything for me: the drama, the action, the mystery. Like, are these people going to be okay? Are they going to live and survive? I was into it, for sure. And that kind of launched me into the rest of these shows. Like, the mystery, wondering what was happening, using the science and theory and mythologies to kind of figure things out. Boom. I was into that kind of stuff. Very hardcore for quite a while. That got me into all of the CSI shows. Literally all of them. CSI Miami, New York, CSI, like the regular one based in Vegas, and then a little bit of the cyber one, like the cybersecurity or cyber intranet one. I watched a bit of that as well. I was into CSI. Oh boy. And again, it has to do with a lot of the like science, quote unquote, that was presented in the shows. How are they going to figure out the crime? And who done it? And like those kinds of mystery shows was really cool to me. And also seeing the actors interact with each other and going between all the different fields like ballistics and autopsy and all of those different things was really cool to me. And like how they can lift a fingerprint off a desk and run it through a database and match it to someone who did the crime. Like, oh, that was like, for lack of better phrasing, science porn for me. Oh my god, it blew my mind. And then also like taking security footage of like these crime scenes and like having only partial face present or no face present, and still using like these different like identification data points and shapes of faces and noses and like all that kind of stuff to match it to potential suspects. It was really, really cool. And then the interrogation scenes, my favorite. CSI Miami, I think, did those scenes the best, because I love Horatio Caine. And yeah, all the other characters in CSI Miami, I love it. And I like New York too. Like the main guy in New York, he had a really cool interrogation style. And then I loved Grissom in CSI. And yeah, I was into that quite a bit. It just seemed like cool how they installed new technology throughout the seasons and years of the show. Like, we just got this new computer that can like hyper analyze like data samples and all that kind of fancy knowledge and terminology. It got me. It was so cool. I really, really enjoyed it. I loved it a lot. And forensics, for the longest time, watching those shows made me want to like go into forensics. But then I realized that it also scared me, and like having to deal with people's like blood or hair or teeth and stuff. I'm good. I'll stick to. Now that I think about it, though, I still deal with that as a teacher, don't I? Not on a regular, not so regular basis as you would in forensics, but maybe I should have been into forensics. Oh well. Anyway, moving on. There's the seaside stuff, like being presented with the crime and then figuring out who did it, getting to know all the potential suspects and trying to guess with like the detectives and the forensics analysts and all that kind of stuff. Like, oh, I bet it's him because they said this and they were there and there was no alibi. And oh yeah, getting into it hardcore. That was me with all the seaside shows, for sure. Then it also gets into a couple other shows that are crime related. I don't know if a lot of people remember this show, but Without a Trace was really cool. You had 48 hours to find a missing person, and if it was longer than 48 hours, it was kind of brought up to like the FBI level or to like different higher levels of investigation, and it was intense to like watch that kind of thing, like more of the police side of things and missing persons and that kind of thing. It was really cool. This person, again, it's kind of like CSI. They present what happened in a very vague way, right? So not give away the answers, of course, but you're left with that throughout the whole hour of the show. Like, oh my god, is this little girl going to come back to our family? Are they going to find her? Because literally there's no evidence left behind, and that was quite a contradiction to CSIs, because there's always evidence. They can always go and find something to find these people and like put them into jail. Without a Trace, literally, that show name tells you these people were just gone, and they had to really, really hunt down for any piece of evidence. And sometimes it came down to the smallest thing, like ended up finding a fingerprint on a doll that the kid had before they disappeared. Something like that, where they have to really look at every inch of the crime scene to find something, to find where this kid went or where this person went. I was so into that. I was like, oh my god, please, like, they have to find them. Because they always present people's lives as something interesting or cool as they reveal more information about the person missing. And so you're like, okay, like, he's a doctor and he like does surgery and he saves people's lives. They have to find him, right? And you just get so involved into the show. It really was something I liked watching. Absolutely. So most of it was sad, because again, 48 hours to find a missing person before thinking the worst case scenario. So a lot of worst case scenarios came out of that show, but at least they would frame it as a way of giving closure to the families that were having these missing people. So when they framed it that way, it's kind of like, that sucked, but at least the family knows what happened. Because a lot of the times we hear about missing persons cases and families are left wondering for the rest of their lives what happened. So it was kind of a cool show for that. And sometimes that happened too. So it really had everything when it comes to like a show called Without a Trace. Then the next one, who my sister's actually rewatching from like beginning to end, is Criminal Minds. I love Criminal Minds so much. I love Spencer Reid and Gloria, and oh god, I don't remember the actor's the character the actor plays, Shamar Moore. Love him, absolutely. And just, god, again, characters that are so interesting, intriguing. There's the drama, the personal side of the show with the relationships and things going on, but then there's the actual criminal minds, the actual cases themselves for the FBI to figure out, and actually seeing the FBI side of things. Very crazy and interesting, and always having the actors present the cases and say that this is what happened, and now we need to think about it from this angle, and this psychological element, or mental element, or emotional side to things. It was really cool. I love Criminal Minds so much. And again, technology in that show is so cool, especially with like the analysts, like Gloria, that's her name, right? I can't remember at all right now. But her, and just being like, yep, I can look up those security footage and I'll get back to you, or I can do this kind of cool technological thing and I'll get back to you. I was like, you can do that with a computer? Damn, that's awesome. So yeah, it's just, again, a really, really good show. I've heard it gets kind of iffy in later seasons, but I don't really care. It's a show that I think, now that I've watched Grey's Anatomy from start to finish, I need to also maybe do what my sister's doing and watch Criminal Minds from start to finish, because I think that'd be really cool. Now moving on to like still this crime theme and interesting take on the crime theme, I guess, is the lawyer side of stuff. So this is where I watched shows like Scandal and How to Get Away with Murder. Scandal is so cool, and having like a prominent female star for the show. Again, as a woman, you look for those examples in your life, and damn, she did that. Olivia on that show was crazy good at her job. And then, of course, the personal side and craziness gets involved, and then it affects her job. And I mean, duh, that happens, but the way she powers through it, and the finale of that show was goddamn sane. I really liked Scandal quite a bit. Just seeing the lawyer side of it, like how they need to really listen to a client's story and figure out how they are going to protect them or defend them in like a court of law or in a case, or how to make things magically disappear to show that they're not guilty, and that kind of craziness was really interesting. And then How to Get Away with Murder, it was the same thing. Just strong, prominent female lead in that show. Love her so much. Even like all her interviews and things that she's done, I really love Victoria Davis a lot. But that show was filmed quite neatly, I think. For like, in comparison to the rest of the shows, it was weird because you're given a snippet of the very last episode of the season. You're given a little snippet. Something crazy happens, and then it cuts to the present, or like before that happens, before the big thing happens at the end. And you are left watching the story piece together all the different details that leads to that big final crime, that big final moment, the murder. A very cool way to do a show, and you keep getting flashbacks and flash forwards, I guess, to these moments, and it's like, okay, who fucking did it? You get to the end of the season, you're like, what happened? Who did it? At this point, any one of them are guilty, and how are they going to cover it up? Who knows? I really liked How to Get Away with Murder, and then it gets complicated in that show with the, again, personal relationships, the revelations of some of the characters' secrets and family, and that's a really good drama, a very good drama. And I really do appreciate the uniqueness of it, giving us a little snippet of the very end of the season and what you're trying to solve throughout the whole thing. Very cool, very unique way to tell a story, and I really liked it quite a bit. So, Scandal on How to Get Away with Murder, that's my lawyer side, which also leads to Law and Order SVU. I goddamn love that show. I love the characters so much, Detective Benson, and the crazy cases they take on, because again, SVU, Special Victims Unit, they're very unique cases. So these are like really difficult topics at times, like dealing with rape and very motivated kidnapping and really difficult things that happen to people, and the way they investigate it, take care of it, handle the clients, the people who did it. Such a unique way to do it. And again, we all love and appreciate the dun dun like sound of the show very much. So that's the huge influence there. Every time you hear that dun dun, I'm like, oh, SVU or Law and Order, and you get really excited. So again, the lawyer side of the crime things, you got all areas covered in those shows if you think about it. The forensic side, the investigation side, technology, interrogation, looking at why a crime has been done the way it has been, like in Criminal Minds. Then you got the lawyer side of it, where you're trying to figure out who did what, how to represent them, and how to put them away, like in Law and Order. So again, a really, really cool show. Really love that. And that was a huge influence. So those crime shows, boom, really hit a nerve and influence in me. And that's why I like science so much growing up, just to try to look up these things and see if they were real, and fingerprinting and all that kind of stuff. It was definitely an interesting time that made me a huge nerd. So you're welcome. This is really a lot of influences to show you how much I am a nerd. Yep, there you go. Now comes into the reality TV side. Reality TV, I really don't remember when I started watching this. I think a lot of it was watching it as a family and then getting glued in, like, immediately. So that was Survivor. This premise of all these people randomly apply to be on the show and apply to go live on a random island somewhere that's not inhabited and survive. Basically, make a camp, learn how to survive, build a fire, get food, find food, and stay healthy and hydrated, boiling water, all that kind of stuff. And then there's a competition to it. They are in teams, and whoever survives the best and all the challenges wins, and they don't have to vote anyone off. But then the people that lose, or the team that loses, they have to figure out who's the weakest link and send them home in a tribal council. I really liked that premise as a kiddo. It was like, oh, who's gonna get voted off this week? And again, it's another show where you learn about the people on it, their lives, and how they interact with others, or their strategies on how to win the game and be the best survivor, the sole survivor of that season. Craziness. It definitely is like a psychological experiment now that I think about it, but I was really into it. I was like, dang, if you're the nice one, that's not always a good thing. If you're the mean one, that's not always a good thing. And it's not always a good thing to fly under the radar either. So a lot of that kind of craziness I was really drawn into for Survivor. And the challenges were crazy. Some of the optical, or the optical courses and things like that they had to go through, or even just now that they've been on the island for like 20 days, 30 days, all that kind of stuff, and then having to do a stamina challenge. Crazy. And you could see like how it affects their bodies and their lives, and Survivor was crazy for me, man. And I really, really liked it. Now next, a meme icon in our life, Chef Gordon Ramsay, and in his two shows, Hell's Kitchen and Kitchen Nightmares. I loved Hell's Kitchen. Oh my goodness, the pressure they put on the chefs and the challenges they have to go through, and taste challenges while being blindfolded, and all that kind of stuff was crazy. It's a little ridiculous, but also kind of a neat thing when you have to think about it. As a chef, you have to know your palate and your taste buds really, really well, and you have to taste everything while you're cooking it, and being under pressure like that in Hell's Kitchen is what you would have to do in a regular restaurant anyway. So I know a lot of people think Chef Ramsay is horrible and like evil for putting all these people through all this stuff, but I don't know, I saw a practical side to it, I suppose, and still do, so I don't know, but there's a lot of drama that comes with it. So yeah, I guess the drama comes from wanting to be the best chef, and there's always a winner at the end. So yeah, a lot of drama, a lot of chaos, people yelling at each other and screaming at each other in the kitchen while trying to serve customers and realizing that customers can hear them. Yeah. And then sometimes having celebrity tables that they have to serve and do their best to impress. And yeah, it's definitely a show. And then Kitchen Nightmares, though, I liked, and I kind of like it for the same reason as the next show, Bar Rescue. Although I don't like the guy in Bar Rescue at all, but there are some really good moments in both shows where you see these prominent figures come in with such a strong attitude to cooking and chefing. Cooking and chefing? Wow. Cooking and being a chef or being a bar owner and coming in, being pretty harsh to the people and be like, how dare you run a business like this? Why are you like this? This is disgusting. I hate your food. I hate how the bar is always sticky and it's falling apart. Like, just being so outrageously rude to these people. Yet they calm down, sit down with these people one-on-one, listen to their lives and what they've been through, and then realizing, okay, you still have a purpose. There's still a reason why you're doing these things, having a restaurant, owning a bar, and you've been through a lot. Let's help you get back on track. It's those turnaround moments and like connecting with them on that level that I like. That's the part of the show where I'm like, okay, they're being jerks right now, but there's going to be an interview after. They're going to learn more about their lives and we'll see like if they deserve it. And yeah, most of the time they do. Most of the people that they help with the bars and the restaurants and even hotel rescue, Gordon Ramsay did that a little bit too. And yeah, it's like, I hope they can help. And I hope that the tensions and drama and yelling will subside and they can help them. And yeah, I really like the shows for those elements. For sure. There are episodes that I liked where in the end, Gordon Ramsay has walked out of a restaurant not helping them at all. Or same with, I don't remember the guy's name for Bar Rescue, but I've seen those episodes too because the drama, chef's kiss, beautiful drama, but also sad. Because then you see what happens after, like because they refused their help, the restaurant ended up being foreclosed in 3 months, and it's like, man, it's sad, you know? So I did like those reality shows quite a bit. And then I'll admit it, I liked watching The Apprentice and Celebrity Apprentice. I don't like it for Trump. Let's be clear, I did not like it for Trump. I liked it for the project management sense of the show, where you had a project leader who was a different person every week, and they were given a task to do some sort of business thing, basically. When it came to like advertising or setting up a project or like a truck stop or a food truck, doing different like elements of business and different fields of business too. I really liked that part of the show. That was really cool to learn like how marketing worked and advertising and all the different steps it takes to start up a business and how you need to find people and hire people or even have your team volunteer to take on roles to do things so the project is successful. That was the part of the show I liked because I like managing things myself. I like managing myself. I should be clear about that. Not necessarily managing people, because that gets conflicted and crazy and there's always drama and conflict. Ugh, don't like that. But when you are in charge of something and you need to see all the steps that it takes to get it to the point of completion, that's the part I liked. So that was the part of the show I really, really liked, was the actual task that they had to do, and then figuring out who was the winning team, who was the most successful. And it was always a toss-up. The way they filmed it and edited it, it made it look like either team could have won. And then you find out the final sales at the end, or the final influence or reach that the project did, and you realize what team won. You're like, oh snap, damn, and you get really excited. And then there's the board meeting, which I like the drama of it, where they have to review all the things that happened, what the project leader did or didn't do, or what the team didn't do and did do, and then figuring out who was the weakest link and having to fire them. Like, you're fired. Guilty pleasure, liked that quite a bit. Will I watch The Apprentice again if it ever aired? No. I think we've had enough years under Trump, and I think we're done. We're good. Yep. But that was why I like that show. Now moving on to sort of a weird mix of shows. Definitely a weird mix because I can't explain it, really. I'm just gonna go through the shows themselves, but boom, Grey's Anatomy is on here, and Private Practice, the spin-off of Grey's. I like doctor shows, and this is no different. Grey's Anatomy was really cool, interesting characters at the beginning, and I've recently watched Grey's from start to finish. So season 1 to 16, all the way through. And yeah, it's crazy to go back and rewatch all of that because you forget some characters that were on the show, or you forget how certain things led to certain moments or when things happened, because I didn't watch the show religiously necessarily growing up. There was a time when I lived with my dad and stepmom where we watched it every Thursday night religiously, hardcore, like we were watching this, and that was really great. I don't remember what seasons those were for, but yeah, it was so good. I like Grey's. All the drama and the weird medical cases that they came in and the surgeries they had to do, and trying to fight for a Harper Avery that became the Catherine Fox Award, and just seeing the science, the innovative medical stuff that came out of it was really cool to see. And I realize now that most of it was borrowed material and borrowed science, or completely something out of the realm of reality, but I don't know, it's still really cool and interesting, like family dynamics and ever-changing family dynamics, the marriages, the very awful character deaths in that show that you watch it from the beginning and those deaths hit you differently. Like, oh my goodness. And I'm hearing season 17 has a lot of these like characters coming back for this season. I'm like, what? And yeah, there's still something about Grey's that keeps me watching it. And I don't know if it's because I love Bailey and I like Meredith a lot and like a lot of the characters and glasses. I know they don't call them glasses anymore, but just again, that show really does write a lot of interesting characters, and I love it so much. And I'm really glad the show has taken a different direction and has let a lot of the actors actually direct some of the episodes. And I think that's really cool because it gives the actors who've been on the show for years a chance to explore other aspects of filming. And yeah, Ellen Pompeo, who plays Meredith Grey, she's taken on a lot of directing and story writing for the show, and I know others have had directing debuts because of this, so it's really neat that they've done that for the actors themselves. Just a little behind the scenes insight that I happen to know about. Yep. Grey's Anatomy, love it. Private Practice 2 was such a neat show. Partially biased for liking the show because they had a character named Violet on the show. So there you go, there's that little bias, but that's where we see Addison and Amelia. So Addison was married to Derek, like the beginning of the show when the whole affair happens and drama, when she leaves Grey's to go join this private practice in LA. And then we have a lot of cool characters in that show. Violet, we have Pete's, and so many other really cool, crazy, quirky characters. And Addison goes there and joins the show there. And we also have Amelia Shepherd, who is their neuroconsultant, I guess, for the private practice. And we get to see Derek's little sister and all of her crazy stories and things that happened to her because it's a drama. And then her going to Grey's was cool because private practice ended before Grey's, obviously, because Grey's is still on and private practice isn't. But a lot of crazy moments there. But it was really cool because they had Violet, who is a psychiatrist, both, therapist, all of the above. And having actually that kind of elements to the show is really cool, because most of the doctor shows just show the cool like emergencies and surgeries and the drama and the awards for medicine and that kind of thing, and then shun away from therapy quite a bit. So having her and her role and her kind of part of the medical field was actually kind of a nice thing to have, although she goes through quite a fucking lot in that show, so her own mental health takes a turn and such. But again, my medical shows I really like, and it makes me want to get into like the Good Doctor. I want to get into that one again, and New Amsterdam, which I know is on Netflix. So oh boy, me and doctor shows, gotta love it. But I do love it. It's interesting, and especially in the pandemic that we're in, it's crazy, and you have to appreciate our doctors a lot right now. So there's that little heartfelt moment. Now moving on to some other crazy shows. Speaking of fantasy and magic and a little bit of escapism and surrealism, Vampire Diaries and the Originals. Hardcore fan. Loved it. Love those shows. The crazy love triangle between Elena and Damon and Stefan was absolutely insane, and then other characters coming in to be love interests, and also dealing with the whole supernatural side of things, like having vampires amongst the living and the crazy centuries they've lived for and all the historical events they've been through. I think that's the part that I like about those shows is, yeah, okay, vampires, love triangles, regular kind of drama, but having centuries of history and past come up to affect them in the current present time was like, whoa, something that happened in the Civil War is now happening to them in real life, and like the cycles of history and how it repeats itself. Sold. And then the Originals I liked because it takes place in New Orleans, and so such a unique, cool history about New Orleans, and that coming out quite a bit. I loved all of it. I really did. I like the whole witch trial thing, and like vampires, werewolves, histories, hybrids. Guilty pleasure. Liked both shows for those reasons. I like my fantasy, sci-fi, whatever the heck all of that is classified under. Really into all that. Probably why I like D&D. Hell yeah. Let me go kill a vampire with my cleric. Will do. So yeah, there's those shows. I love them both. Now it comes into the fun drama and sitcom era again. So I watched Glee. I will admit it. Liked Glee a lot. It was quirky. It was interesting. There's the drama. There's the silliness to it. Jane Lynch was in it. Hell a fan of Jane Lynch. She's in Criminal Minds as Spencer Reed's mom. Anyway, sorry. I like actors and actresses quite a bit, and Schuster, and how a lot of people argue that he's not the greatest teacher, not a good teacher, but he has his moments in the show for sure, and recognizing people's talents and finding a place for all these kind of unique geeks and nerds in the school by creating the Glee Club. Yeah, I was a sucker for all that. Hardcore. And then the songs they played or sang to, again, a sucker for all of it. Absolutely. I still have some Glee's versions of songs on Spotify, and I'll leave it at that. Yep, Glee, guilty pleasure, boom. Yep, I'll admit that out loud. Then moving into some of the other kind of dramas. I love The Fosters so much. I don't know why, but seeing that show made me want to actually like be a foster parent sometime in my life. Not right now. Definitely not financially stable or responsible enough to become a foster parent right now, but maybe if my life keeps going the way it is and I can get financially stable, I would want to be a foster parent like Steph and Lena in that show, because they really genuinely care about the kids that they bring in, take on, and adopt, and they're not perfect, and the show really outlines that quite a bit. Like, they're not perfect at it, they work hard, but there's always some sort of like lesson they learn, and I think they keep the lessons learned quite well in the show. So it's really cool, well done. And it also showcases a lot of good cultural moments too, because there's the twins that are that have like a Latina heritage to them. So there's a lot of those moments that are really well done and really shine the light on the system itself and how it needs to be improved and worked upon. And I've heard from my sister that there's a spin-off show for the Fosters that has like a lot of that kind of work being done, where Callie becomes a lawyer and wants to work with fighting system and all that kind of stuff. So it's really unique, really good. Showcases a lot of really interesting things. Like the foster system is not perfect, it's not the greatest, but if you've got good people, then it could be a good system. And yeah, I don't know, I really like that kind of wholesome kind of thing. Plus, like, the theme song again is beautiful, very touching, and it makes you wish you had a family like that sometimes. Yep. Then we have Gilmore Girls. I love my Gilmore Girls, okay? You relate to Rory and Lorelai so much in the sense of their love of coffee, but the complicated relationships between mother and daughter, absolutely. And again, dealing with high school drama and like being from a small town where everybody knows each other. It's such a charming little show. I really, really liked it. I really, really do. And a lot of good actors come out of that show too, for sure. Such a good time. I really like Gilmore Girls. And a lot of my coffee gifts that I like using on Twitter, they're Gilmore Girls related. Like, I need an IV for coffee right now. Yeah, that's Lorelai Gilmore right there. Absolutely. Loved it. And then there's... I forgot one a little ways ago, but there's The Sweet Life of the American Teenager as well. I watched that when I was younger, and then I rediscovered it later, and I love it so much. Again, wishing I had that chaotic, crazy high school life. Really shows in the shows that I chose to watch and have an influence on me, because I never had a crazy life like a lot of these shows. In many ways, I'm much of a shut-in than anything else, but again, Sweet Life of the American Teenager, crazy family dynamics, teenage pregnancy and how they deal with it, not perfectly, but interestingly enough. And then, yeah, Shailene Woodley, the actress from that show, she has an amazing acting career from that show, and she's a really good actress. Very, very good actress to me. Like, I really appreciate her as an actress too. Very, very good. But yeah, Sweet Life of the American Teenager, guilty pleasure. I don't think I need to go into that. I think it's similar to like 90210, Melrose Place, Degrassi, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, there's that too. And then one that I've watched fairly recently, maybe just a couple of years ago, that I binge watched it from beginning to end. But I really appreciate it because it took on like a weird sort of, how do I explain it? A telenovela, but not really telenovela. It kind of made fun of the telenovela style, but in a very wholesome kind of family drama way. And that's Jane the Virgin. I loved it. I love Jane the Virgin. Oh my gosh. Just having the narrator kind of do those like very typical telenovela things like, and yet later on, did she know? And kind of do those little things to kind of keep you watching and guessing and what's happening. Is Jane gonna fall in love with these guys, or is she gonna say no and then she gets pregnant, has a baby without actually ever having sex, and how that has been an interesting thing. And then when she finally does have sex and that kind of thing, like, oh man, I was a sucker for that show, absolutely. And amazing actors and actresses in that show too, that really portray like family dynamics and the emotions and complicated feelings of everything, and it's so good. I really like Jane the Virgin a lot. I mean, the finale, a lot of people, I kind of agree with a lot of people, it wasn't the best finale for the show. Yet it makes sense, because like the way the narrator phrases it, Wow, I've been talking for an hour and now my voice is going. I'm sorry. Um, the narrative phrases is like most telenovelas start with a wedding, and most telenovelas end with a wedding. So there's a wedding at the end of the episode. So not the greatest finale for a show, but I still really, really enjoyed it. A lot of good, again, a decent representation, I suppose, of like Latino culture, and Spanish influence, and all that kind of stuff, and how their view on family and like their culture, values of family shifts and weaves itself into the show and like into Jane's life. And I really, really liked it, especially as someone who watched quite a few telenovelas in Spanish and like in university, and just to try to pick up the language better, because I am learning Spanish too. So again, also kind of cool that there's Spanish in this show that I'm like, I know what they said. I don't need subtitles for that. Also kind of another benefit to me as well. And then our last little segment here are the sitcoms that I love to watch. Because, yeah, again, I've watched a lot of dramas, mysteries, a lot of heartfelt, wholesome shows, as you can hear now in this list. You needed some sitcoms to balance it out. So what were the typical sitcoms that I watched? 2.5 Men, How I Met Your Mother, Big Bang Theory, Mike and Molly, Melissa and Melissa and Joey, The New Girl. I watched all those. I like my comedies and like sitcoms, because what makes a really good sitcom is there's a lot of ha 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 moments, some sarcastic ha 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 moments, and some cringe. Definitely a lot of cringe. Friends as well, right? Like a lot of cringy moments. If you go back and rewatch those now, it's like, oh boy, that was a little racist, and that's not so good. That's not a good representation of that. Oh boy, cringe. But there's something about a good sitcom that makes you come back and watch the episodes over again. And that's kind of what a lot of those shows were for me. If I see reruns on TV now and there's nothing else to watch, you bet it, I'm sitting down watching the marathon of Big Bang Theory or 2.5 Men. I'll watch those again, and yeah, I'm guilty of that. But I also like a lot of them for like some wholesome moments, especially like in Big Bang Theory, like with the relationships and like the friendships, and genuine like friendship moments were really sweet. I know most of them got kind of totally eliminated with the jokes and bullying a little bit between the characters, but again, they're quite funny, nerdy humor. I'm all for it. So there's some really good wholesome moments, and that leads to what I'm watching right now. I've actually started watching Modern Family from start to finish, and what makes that a good sitcom is, again, a lot of wholesome family moments. I did not expect to laugh or cry as much as I have watching the show. Really, really touching moments, and I think it's because while it is humorous and it's supposed to play on like the typical family or the not so typical family kind of dynamic, there are a lot of moments where there's like one of the kids standing up to their parent finally after all these years, and it kind of being hilariously played out. But then at the end of the episode, there is a sweet kind of coming together that just touches you. You're like, oh damn, they resolved that conflict from like 20 years ago. Damn. And there's a progression to Modern Family as well. You see these kids grow up from being like young teenagers to adults, and I don't know, part of it's refreshing to see some of these kids grow up and still live at home, or living with like another family member, and figuring out life and jobs and careers, and yeah, and even seeing like Claire and Phil kind of get involved in like things that they've always wanted to get involved with, because now they can, that their kids are all adults. And it's a really touching progression of a family, basically, in a sitcom, funny, hilarious way. But God, I have never expected to cry over so much over a character like Phil Dunphy. Man, my heart goes out to him. He's such a pure, hilarious, fun, crazy dad, and There are moments in the show that just breaks my heart for him. Like, nothing goes right, or he's trying to make everything right and it doesn't. And that's the comedic aspect of it, of course. But again, it's just so sweet. Really, really sweet. And even Jay, our tough guy grandpa in the show, he's big softy on the inside. So I like shows that do that. Play on the stereotypes quite a bit, for the humor, and then totally break them down and show like what a real genuine person is. So hats off to Modern Family for sure for me. And then there are a lot of Netflix shows that I've seen recently, like Atypical is really good. There's Sex Education that I've watched, and that's awesome as well. There's quite a few that I've seen recently that I was gonna put on my list, but I haven't had enough time to sit with the show to have it influence on me like these shows have. So there's that. There's a whole whack of shows here, and I know I'm missing a bunch because it's so hard to remember every show you've watched in your whole life. Absolutely it is, but pretty decent list. We've been talking for over an hour, and that's a lot of the shows that I've had influence on or have an influence on me, and that I've enjoyed watching for whatever reason. So hopefully this is a little interesting and a little insight into my life and forms of entertainment that I watch. Wholesome, tragic, comedic, and gives me a sense of Schadenfreude. There you go. Those are the shows for me. And also a little supernatural and mysticism and mystery. So there's me. Damn. Doing all of that makes me realize what kind of person I am and what I like and enjoy in the form of entertainment. So there you go. You get to know a little bit more about me. I get to know a little bit more about me. And this was quite a fun journey. So thank you guys for watching and listening. That was all of the TV shows and influences that they've had on me throughout the years, and I'm sure there'll be many more to come in the near future. So thank you guys so much. If you have a suggestion of a show that sounds like something I'm interested in or have seen before or similar to what I've seen before, leave it in the comments. I'm always down to check out new things. And I will see you guys next week for the movies and influences. That's going to be a fun one. So look forward to listening and talking to you all then. Take care and bye. Bye-bye. Dragons Den out.